Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to the Talking Deen podcast. I'm your host Majid, and I have with me Brother Rash, and also a very special guest, Brother Sami. Welcome to the show, brothers.
Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair.
It's been, it feels strange. It's been a long time since actually we've done a podcast in person.
Together, yeah.
So inshallah, let's sort of get into this a bit. Brother Sami, me and Brother Rash, we watched a video of yours. You were giving a speech, and we thought, subhanAllah, it's about Palestine. It was in Ramadan. The emotions were high, and we felt, we need to get Brother Sami on the podcast so we can have a chat, get your insight on, what's happening. But before that, bro, you want to tell us a bit about yourself, your links to Palestine and so on?
Yeah, I was born in Palestine, in a city called Ramallah.
Oh, Ramallah, okay.
My father was born, and this is very important for Palestinians. They all insist on this point. They would say to you, the Palestinians who live in Palestine, if you ask anyone, where do you live? He would say, for example, I live in Ramallah, but originally I'm from Akka, or originally I'm from Ramla, or originally I'm from Nazareth. So they always, all the generations, even the young ones now, when you say to him, where are you from? He would mention the city he was born in, but he will also emphasize on where his father was from. So if somebody asks me, where are you from? If a Palestinian asks me, where are you originally from? I would say, I'm from the city of Ramla. Where do you live? In Ramallah.
So they're different, they're both different cities, right?
Different cities. The naming is a bit close to each other, Ramla and Ramallah. So my father was born in Ramla. My grandfather was born in a city called Ramla. But after 1967, when they immigrated to the West Bank, I was born in the city of Ramallah, and I grew up in that city. I did my studies there. Then I came to the UK in 1985 to study at Loughborough University, microelectronics. Okay. And then I got married, and I stayed in England all that time. Yeah, but I never lost contact with Palestine. I mean,
and you still have family there?
Oh yeah, most of my family are there. We are 5 brothers and 3 sisters.
MashaAllah.
So 3 brothers living. Me and another 2 lives in the UK. 1 sister in America, and the other 4 still live in Palestine with my mother. My father passed away a few years ago. So so I was brought up there. All my childhood was in Palestine. It was a bit different at that time. When I go now, it's more busy. The buildings are much more expanded everywhere. The cities are bigger. The traffic is bigger. It's quite busy cities at the moment. Not compared to Europe, of course. Because remember, we are only in the West Bank. We are only 3 million. In the Arabs in the West Bank. So it's a small country. The whole of Palestine is a small country. I remember once I was traveling to Palestine from the UK, and the plane crossed the Mediterranean. It touched the shores of Palestine, and I had Google Maps in front of me, and I thought, I want to see how long
it takes to get back.
Because remember, I can't use the Israeli airports. Although I'm British, if I go with you to Israel, to the Israeli area, you will go through. I will have to return
just because of your history.
Because I've got a Palestinian ID, because I've got a Palestinian passport. So if you've got a Palestinian passport and a foreign passport, you have to go through Jordan. You have to land in Jordan.
I didn't know that.
Then cross the borders by buses and by the rest of the Palestinians. So once I was going, so I saw the shores of Palestine. And of course, we were going to go to Jordan, to land in Jordan, then come back to Palestine by bus. That's how it works. And I thought, I want to see how long it's going to take for the plane to cross the width of Palestine. And it was going some sort of diagonally. 5 minutes.
5 minutes,
5 minutes. The whole area of Palestine is only 27,000 square meters.
I think someone shared a picture from Jordan, and how just from a slightly high up kind of mountainous area, you can see all of Palestine.
You can see all of Palestine.
When we talk about it, we will mention as well, isn't it, that if they want to do something to help the Palestinians, they're in view. It's not like so far away like we might even think of in the UK.
No, it's not. I mean, from Ramallah, to be honest with you, I could see the planes when they land on Tel Aviv airport, Ben Gurion airport. You can see the lights on the Mediterranean because the shores, the Israelis live on the shore of Palestine. we live on the mountain areas.
Right.
Okay. We live on the mountain, which is the West Bank.
Mm.
Now, the Israelis' so-called connection to Palestine is nothing to do with the shore. It's in the West Bank. That's where they claim Abraham is, and Solomon and David, and so their religious connections is actually in the West Bank. That's why the settlements are in the West Bank. Because they want to be in that area. Jerusalem for them, as they claim the Temple of Solomon was in Jerusalem. Jerusalem for them is what is the most important point, which they have never found any evidence of their existence there as in a temple or whatever. But one thing I find that it might be good to talk about are the Palestinians who actually live in Palestine, right? Because believe it or not, although we are all one nation, but we are four different categories in Palestine. The first one are the people who live in the West Bank, and then the people who live in Gaza, because we have got no geographical connection between the West Bank and Gaza. We are separated from each other. And then you've got the Palestinians who live in the land which was occupied in 1948, who they call wrongly the Arabs of Israel. And then you've got the people of Jerusalem, those who live in Jerusalem, and those who live outside Palestine. So it's 5 categories. But the ones inside,
they're already split.
It's very complicated. You can't work for somebody who's not from there. It's very complicated because the Arabs who live in Israel, for example, they carry an Israeli citizenship. The Arabs who live in Jerusalem, although Jerusalem is supposedly part of Israel, they don't carry an Israeli citizenship. They don't even carry a Palestinian citizenship. They carry an Israeli travel document.
Yes, I heard about this.
We, from the West Bank, we take Palestinian passport. The ones in Gaza, they do take Palestinian passport. The majority of them take Egyptian travel documents. It's very complicated.
So you know how I think in regards to you've mentioned there's the Muslims of Palestine are split up in certain areas. But what I want to ask you, Brother Sami, is to go even further back, okay? Because what it is what we've noticed is, certainly we saw it in Ramadan as well, right? Is the propaganda machine of the Israelis, of the West generally, it's very powerful. So there's certain narratives that they're pushing, which I've actually seen Muslims sort of buy into, okay? So this element of a two-state solution is the best way forward. This element of the Jews, some even have said that they have even more legitimacy to Al-Aqsa and these areas than Muslims. And some Muslims are confused in regards to how did we get to how we are today. And I want to just give you a quote before I let you sort of answer this question. And this is from 1875, okay? And this quote was by the Earl of Shaftesbury. And what he said was, "We have there a land teeming with fertility and rich in history, but almost without an inhabitant, a country without a people, and look, scattered over the world, a people without a country." So there's also this view that's portrayed that in reality that land, no one even lived there anyway, right? So with all this in mind, you know, and also the fact that some people are even questioning whether the issue of Palestine, the issue of Al-Aqsa, Al-Quds, whether it's even an Islamic issue or whether it's just an Arab issue and so on. So from your point of view, and it's good to get your point of view because you have that connection with that land also, what is the history of Palestine? You know, the sort of media narrative that's being promoted, why is this incorrect and what are your views on this?
To be honest, it's not my point of view. It's what the history is saying, and you can't fault history. History is history. Yeah, I mean, you've mentioned 1875. We have got 2 claims to this land. I mean, as a Palestinian Muslim, for example, I have 2 claims for this land. We are the first one who lived in this land, and then the Islamic claim, when Muslims came and liberated Jerusalem from the Romans who were persecuting the residents of Palestine at that time. If we are going to go back, I'm not going to go deep in history, but this is very, very important. This question is extremely important for the youths and for the new generation to understand. I'll try to make it as quickly as possible without being boring and as simple as possible. It all started from Yemen, 5, 6, 7,000 years ago, when the Arabs were living in Yemen, and then they immigrated from Yemen for agricultural reasons. There were some sort of famine.
There was a flood. There was a flood, wasn't there? Dam.
Exactly. So they immigrated from Yemen up north. Geography, if anybody wants to understand the history of Palestine, which most Muslims should do, if you look at the map, well, I mean, if you follow the map, it will make it much easier for you to understand what I'm talking about. So when people moved from Yemen up north, they called the Canaanites.
Canaanites,
yeah. And they lived in Palestine, particularly in Palestine. Some other people, some Arabs lived in Lebanon. They called the Phoenicians. Some went to Iraq. Some went to Jordan, the Ammonians. Some went to Syria. So they mainly immigrated to the Levant, which is the Bilad al-Sham, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Palestine. And some went to Iraq. Now, from that time, there were nobody living in that area. There were no proper recorded societies as in civilization. So they moved there. The Palestinians in particular, I don't know how many people know this, there are two races.
Right.
Originally. The Arabs who came from Yemen.
Okay.
And the tribes of the Pelst who immigrated from the island of Crete to Palestine.
Are they known as the Canaanites, I think?
No, Canaanites are the Arabs.
Is that Arabs? Okay,
yeah.
okay.
These were some sort of Greek-Italian race, Aryan race. They were persecuted by the Greeks at that time, and they immigrated from Crete, the island of Crete, to Palestine. That's why when I say, if you look at the map, it makes it easier because you could see Palestine here, and Crete is just nearly opposite.
Yeah. So we can show this in the video. We'll put it on the screen. Yeah.
So they lived on the shores. Now, the word Palestine is not coming from the Arabs. It's coming from the tribes of the Pelst.
Okay.
They called the Palestinian land. And they lived on the shores. And then the Arabs came as well. And they lived in the mountains in the West Bank. It seemed that the Arabs' number were much more than the Pelsts. There were no recorded fightings among them. They mingled, and the Pelsts became part of the whole nation.
But at this time, Brother Sami, just to clarify that, when you're talking about these Arabs, this is pre-Islam, isn't it?
This is pre-Islam. We are talking 5,000 years ago.
Yeah.
We haven't come to Islam, came later.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll come to the Islamic issue as quickly as possible. So these are the original inhabitants of Palestine. Exactly like the Lebanese. Nobody can argue that the Phoenicians were the major and the main inhabitants of Lebanon, who also came from Yemen. Why should you argue over the Canaanites who lived in Palestine, or the Ammonians who lived in Jordan, or the Aryans who lived in Iraq? So this is the historical claim of who have lived in Palestine. At that time, there were no Israel. We need to remember that Israel is the name of Prophet Yaqub.
Yeah. Bani Israel.
Bani Israel. They are his sons. And he only appeared in the picture, I would say, how long ago? Maybe 3,500 years. The story of Yusuf in Egypt and the Israelis. But I don't want to divert into this. We'll go back to the Palestinian issue, with the Palestinian part of it. This is the first claim. Now, when Moses came, Prophet Moses, when he came, and he immigrated with the Israelis to the Sinai desert, he asked them to fight.
Yeah.
And this is in the Quran. He asked them to enter the land and fight. That was the Gaza Strip. That was the borders of Gaza. What did they say to him? There are people who are very strong, Jabbareen, aggressive, vicious. We are not going to fight them. Go, you and your God, fight together. We are sitting here fighting no one. This is when they were in the desert. So who were these people? Who were they? They were the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, down south. Okay. Then when Prophet Moses died, and the boy who went with him wants to learn, as the Quranic story says, from the knowledgeable man, his name was Yosha bin Nun. Yosha bin Nun. When the 40 years finished in the desert of Sinai, Prophet Musa has died. And Prophet Musa and his brother Harun, they were prevented by God from entering the Palestine. They never entered Palestine, neither Moses or Harun, his brother. And Moses, Prophet Musa, he asked Allah to make him die from a
stone's throw
away from Palestine, and he died on the borders of Jordan, just on the west side of the river. To prove this, we are talking Islamic now. I mean, you are talking Islamic things, Islamic views about this. When Prophet Muhammad in the strip of Al-Isra wal-Mi'raj
journey,
he said, "This is the." He said to the companions, "I saw where Moses' grave was. It was near the Red Heap." The Red Heap is an area which is in Jordan, south of Jordan, opposite
side. Yeah.
So even Prophet Moses, he was not allowed to enter. He wanted to, but he was not allowed. So when he died, Yosha bin Nun took the Israelis through Jordan, and then he conquered Palestine through Jericho. That army was a Muslim army.
Yeah, they were believers, yeah.
They were believers. The Palestinians, they were not believers. So we as Muslims, we support them. They were bringing the message.
Of
Tawheed. There is message of Tawheed. Okay, some people might think, oh, they were Jews. No, they were not Jews. Exactly. They were muwahideen.
You know, in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, he's speaking to Bani Israel, that when you enter the city, enter with humility and like bow down. And
yes,
is this referring to
that army?
Yeah,
that is the army which entered. He asked him to go. He asked him to go from the gates of Jerusalem, and to say Hutta. Hutta means drop our sins.
Yeah,
drop our sins. And he asked him to bow down. They went in on their back sides, and they said Hinta, which means wheat. They didn't even want to say the word Hutta. It wasn't a big deal. Just say Hutta. Hutta is to hut something is to drop. So if they say Hutta, it means drop our sins, and we are entering the city. That was the beginning of the history of the Israelis in Palestine. But again, I'm going to go back to the
one thing though. When we normally say Israel, I'm holding the mic so I can only do it with one hand. Israel, because we don't recognize it. But when you're saying Israelis, this time you're talking about Bani Israel.
The race of Israel.
Yeah, the race
the sons of Yaqub.
Exactly. Yeah.
The sons of Yaqub, not the Israelis.
Yeah.
It's a good. This is a very good important point to distinguish between Israelis and Jews.
Because I remember when I was young, and I started learning about Islam in school, and I learned about the Palestinian and the issues going on, and then in the Quran it'd say Bani Israel. And I was getting confused, thinking, wait a minute, we don't recognize them. But in the Quran, so many times it's talking about Israel, the land of Israel.
Yes.
But that's why I was confused at that time.
Yes.
That's why it's important to clarify that.
Yes. At this stage, the statistics, the studies shows at this stage where, at our era, that only 10% of the Jews in the world are actually Israelis. From the race of Israel.
Okay. Yeah.
The Russians Jews are not Israelis. Exactly. The French Jews are not Israelis. They adopted the religion, but they are not Israelis.
Okay.
So they are mentioned twice. The Yahud is mentioned in the Quran, and Bani Israel is mentioned. So the Yahud include the whole of the Jews, including Bani Israel. But when you say the Israelis or the Bani, the sons, Bani means the sons of.
Yeah, Bani.
The tribe. Bani is the tribe. So 10% roughly, the estimates that at this stage, at the moment, 10% only from whole Jews of the world are Israelis. So just back to the other point, when they entered Jericho. So they have entered from Gaza first time. They didn't want to. When Prophet Moses died, they entered from Jericho. They fought the people. They had fight. Who did they have fight with? They fight the Arabs. Yes, they were non-believers, but I'm talking about the historic part of it.
Yeah.
So to claim that this is a land in 1875, to claim this is a land
with no
people, for people, those two wars, who has? Okay, when the Israelis entered with Yosha bin Nun, and they were good Muslims for a while, They have had a good Islamic a good Islamic, because Prophet Abraham called us Muslims. So the good Christians are Muslims.
Of course.
The good Jews are Muslims. The good Muslims are Muslims. We are called Muslims by Prophet Abraham.
Even though they did reflect some of their behavior by the fact that they couldn't even enter in the way Allah commanded them to,
yes,
but still they were believers.
Yes. So historically, you can see from here that there were people living there thousands of years before they came.
Even just to add quickly as a point here, that I recently saw, I think it was, did you see this interview that Russell Brand did on his podcast?
Yeah,
and he was talking to a Holocaust survivor.
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, he called himself a Holocaust survivor, and he was, I had his name, Gabor Mate. Dr. Gabor Mate, I think his name is, and he was saying he basically said that they were indoctrinated into this theory of a land without a people for a people without a land. That whole term was promoted to the Jews from around the world, so that to take them to Al-Quds and to Palestine. Yeah, and the whole idea was they gave them a dream. Because of after the Holocaust, all of the Jews that were killed, they gave them this vision that we found there's a land without a people, and you are a people without a land, so that's where we're going to go. And then this was promoted to them in such a sense that many of them started to dream about it, like in a way, like in almost they are excited that this place is for us. But when he himself said, when we got there, we realized that even though that we have been told to go to this place and live there, there is people here. And now what we have to do, and he said it in his own words, that for us to fulfill our dream, we have to make it a nightmare for the people who are living there, because we have to ethnically cleanse them and we have to remove them. So even this is a Jew himself saying that what they promoted to them, to indoctrinate them, to prepare them to take them into Palestine, was a fallacy in itself. So Muslims, we can say this because we can, as Brother Sami is giving all of the historical context, but this is a Jew coming out himself saying, wait there a minute, this isn't land that didn't have any people. There was civilization there was Muslims there.
So there are the two entries that we have spoken about, the Gaza and Jericho. And when the Israelis lived there, remember, before even the Israelis came, thousands and thousands of years, Palestine was occupied by the pharaohs.
Right.
It got occupied by the Greeks. It got occupied by Alexander the Great. Every nation, the Persians, and then the Hebrews. And their kingdom in Palestine wasn't that long.
Yeah.
Compared to the other conquerors. Now, when they lived there, the Israelis, for a while they were good, and then Prophet David came, Dawood
al-Islam, yeah.
And it's important to mention Dawood and Sulaiman, because Sulaiman is the prophet the son of Dawood, who took control of the kingdom, and he was the only king and a prophet at the same time.
Right, okay.
Sulaiman. And I don't think that David was a king, he was a prophet, but Solomon was definitely a king and a prophet. This is very important point. When Sulaiman died, Prophet Sulaiman died, he had two sons. One called Rahbam, one called Yarbam.
Okay, do you know that?
They split the kingdom between them. One of them took the south kingdom, one took the north kingdom.
And obviously these are not prophets.
No, they're not prophets. Yeah. They are the sons of Solomon. Yeah. They are not prophets, no. The south kingdom, which includes a city, the main city is Nablus, and that was called Samurai. And the north one, which is Jerusalem, and the other areas was called Yehuda. So there is Yehuda and Samurai. In West Bank now.
Oh, so whenever they talk about Samara and
Yehuda,
that
is the West Bank.
Yeah.
That is the West Bank. Yeah. So that's when the sons of Sulaiman split the kingdom into two. They had a fight. The Iraqis came and finished the northern kingdom, and they took all the Jews to Iraq.
Okay.
They took them. They took the whole lot.
But these were like maybe pagan Arabs.
Like they were the pagan Arabs who immigrated from Yemen to Iraq. Yeah. there are two main tribes, one called Ashuris, one called Kildaniyin and Ashuriyin. And they took the whole Israelis from the northern kingdom, from the southern kingdom to Iraq. After 200 years nearly, another tribe of Iraq, they came and I don't want to go into details of the names and the dates and whatever, just make it a simple. They came and they took the other half. And Palestine was without Jews. It was empty. That's it.
So who replaced the
original people who always lived there? We never left.
Oh, they never left. Okay.
We never left.
Fair enough. Yeah.
We were Palestinians. Okay, we were Arabs under the occupation. I don't like to call it occupation because at the beginning it was an Islamic rule.
Did they not? Did the people there not accept the religious?
They must
religion
have,
of Musa
because Prophet Sulaiman was in full control.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. Yeah.
Actually, Prophet Sulaiman, if you go deep into our religion, into Islamic religion, he controlled the Jews. They wanted nationalism, and he didn't.
Right.
And even Prophet David. Because when Prophet Sulaiman came, they asked Prophet Sulaiman to leave the chains that Prophet David put on them. They were chained, the Israelis themselves, because their call was nationalist. The Israelis. His wasn't. His was an Islamic Tawheed. So they were in a way they were controlled by David, Prophet Dawood, and then when Prophet Sulaiman came, they asked him to release the pressure that Prophet Dawood has put on them. And that's a good question. Was it empty? No, because the Hebrews all the time, they were minority. Even when they controlled, even as a race. Let's put the religion on one side. Prophet Sulaiman, Prophet Dawood, and the Israelis, whenever they lived in Palestine, they were minority. And they did not belong to that. They didn't belong to that part of the world, because they are actually, if you put it between brackets, they are Egyptians. So this is the historic part of it. Now, it's very important for people to realize that if Israel is going to claim a land, they may as well claim Egypt. Because when Prophet Yusuf went to Egypt with his father and his mother and his 11 brothers, they stayed in Egypt. And the Israelis became a nation in Egypt until Prophet Moses came. So they multiplied in numbers. When the Israelis, the sons of Yaqub, multiplied in numbers, they didn't multiply in Palestine. They multiplied in Egypt. So go and claim Egypt. If you have a single claim, it will be Egypt, not Palestine. Does that make sense?
This is when they say that they have a historical claim. So if their historical claim is already flawed based on what you described there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They came from Egypt as an army. Although it's a Muslim army after the 40 years of loss in the Sinai desert. But yeah, it's Egypt who they should claim for. They might have even more claim than Palestine. And they took them, the Iraqis took the Israelis until a king of Iraq called Koresh. They married him a very beautiful Jewish woman, and he allowed them to come back. In small numbers. They came back and they lived in Palestine under the rules of the Palestinians, the governments which were at that time, which were the Romans.
Yeah, of course.
It was the Romans. That's when Jesus came. Because if you remember, the Jews conspired with the Romans to crucify Jesus.
Of course.
Is the picture
together.
A little bit cleaner? It's more together. So the Romans at that time were controlling Palestine. And we know the story of Jesus and the Jews, and they lived there until the Muslims came. When Prophet Umar, when Umar ibn al-Khattab came to Palestine, the Christians came out. The Christian Palestinians put the conditions, not the Jewish
Christian ones.
And we had something called the Umar Accord,
the Umari Treaty.
Yeah, the Umar Treaty. The Christians said, no Jews to live in Jerusalem, and no thieves to live in Jerusalem. And the Romans surrendered and were allowed to live in peace. So we had to the Muslims at that time had to deal with two parts. The indigenous people, who were the Christians, who didn't want the Jews with them, because they were coming originally from Iraq after years of living in Iraq. And the Romans left, the Jews left, and the Muslims controlled the country. This is our claim as Muslims from that. Islamically speaking, this is our claim.
So I've got a question for you here then, Brother Sami. Now, obviously, we know that there's the Umari treaty, that the Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu anhu, he signed the fact that the request that no Jews will be allowed within Jerusalem.
Based on the Christians' demand.
Okay, that's fine. But there's a claim then, the fact that from an Islamic point of view, people generally are allowed to roam the world, okay? And to restrict a people from a certain place, you'd need some sort of reason. From an Islamic point of view, you can't stop people from living in a certain place based on their race or anything like that, right? Now here, the fact that the Khalifa, who was a companion, and the companions around him, they agreed upon the fact that within Jerusalem, there should be no Jews, there shouldn't be no Yahudis in Jerusalem, okay? So this, in a way, is a consensus between Umar ibn Khattab, radiallahu anhu, and the companions, okay? And this is why there is a claim from a Shari point of view that, forget the fact that these lot they say they have a link to that land. The reality is from an Islamic point of view, from a Shari point of view, they are not allowed to visit or stay, or I'm not sure the details whether they're even allowed to enter or not. That the Jews cannot enter Jerusalem. What's your thoughts on that?
This is the Islamic point. When I started, I said that we have got two claims. The first claim was historical, which I hope I have cleared.
You have, and we're more interested in the Islamic one anyway.
This is the Islamic one.
Yeah.
Now remember that if Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he wouldn't have agreed if he wasn't talking to the owners of the land. He didn't talk to the Israelis, and he didn't talk to the Romans. He talked to the Christians who were originally Arabs, the Canaanites, who believed in Jesus and became Christians. And they stayed in Jerusalem with the Jews. Because if you remember, Jesus came after Moses.
So would you not say that because I know actually you're right, because the discussion was between Umar ibn Khattab and the Patriarch of Jerusalem. Yeah. So it wasn't between the Muslims and the Romans who were controlling.
No,
that.
It was a completely different deal.
Okay.
With the Romans, it was a military deal.
Yeah.
We are
surrender.
Either surrender and leave your army, and then they had to deal with the inhabitants, and that's where the Patriots came.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but in respect of the Jews allowed to enter Jerusalem or not enter Jerusalem, there is no Islamic rule which says the Jews are not allowed to come to visit Jerusalem. The only place that non-Muslims are not supposed to go is Mecca. The rest of the world, it's open to everybody to come. They can come under the Muslims' rules. At the time of the Ottoman Empire, when the Jews were persecuted in Russia, we as Muslims, the Ottoman Empire is an Islamic empire. We took them in. The first immigrants came,
even from Spain.
Even from Spain, but I mean after they left Palestine at the time of Prophet Umar. I keep saying Prophet Umar, from Umar Khalifa Umar radiallahu anhu. The first return for them officially was in the 18th century by the agreement and the approval of the Ottoman Khalifa at that time, because they were persecuted in Russia.
So what you're saying is from the time of the conquest of Jerusalem up until the Ottomans' time, that the Jews did not go. They never even visited.
They were not allowed in.
So that means that there must be something from an Islamic point of view to think that. But then actually, don't they say that when the Crusaders came, they killed Muslims, Christians, and Jews within Jerusalem? So I don't understand.
I'm talking about a proper immigration, a proper settlements.
Right.
Where they had their own villages.
Okay.
I'm not talking about scattered individuals here and there.
Visitors who...
Exactly. I'm talking about people who actually came in as a full society where the Muslims, the Ottoman Empire, have opened for them villages facilitated their immigration. They were a political asylum people.
That makes sense.
Yeah, in the 18th century. That's why in the First World War, 1% of the Palestinians were Jews. 1% of the Palestinians were Jews. 10% were Christians. This 1% are the ones that we as Muslims allowed them to enter to Palestine and live there in peace under the Ottoman Empire. And then, as you know, after the First World War, the Balfour Declaration, and then the British occupation of Jerusalem and the immigration of the Israelis started to come to Palestine in big numbers. So we can't say Jews have been zero numbers in Palestine. I mean, even at the time of Khalifa Umar ibn Khattab, when he said you have to leave Jerusalem, it doesn't mean they left Palestine. It was Jerusalem. They might have lived up north, or in Nablus.
Yeah, I think we're because I think it was called. I can't remember now, because at that time Jerusalem was called something else, wasn't it? Because even in the Umari Treaty, it's Iliya or something.
Iliya, yeah.
Iliya.
Ardu Yabus, they called it. Yabus is the first name that Jerusalem was called.
Okay.
Yeah, and the word Jerusalem is known to us as Jerusalem, but for the companions it was Baitul Maqdis.
Yes, of course.
Baitul Maqdis. Yes. Yeah.
So like you've really given a good picture of to the current times, in the sense like how the immigration happened, and we know that the British really were quite instrumental in the immigration into that land, went leading up to like hundreds of thousands. Okay, so for the people listening, and certainly the youth who will be getting confused with double messages about legitimacy and all this sort of stuff, the main thing that is being used today is the issue of the Holocaust, in the sense like if you say Israel does not have a right to exist, you are automatically anti-Semitic. Okay, and what happens is a lot of Muslims who probably don't know the history, what they will say was, look, they were 6 million were killed by the Nazis. Obviously they had somewhere, they needed to go somewhere, and so they can sort of like see the picture. But I want you guys to shed a bit more light on the fact that if we're looking at that, for example, that statement that I mentioned earlier, okay, is from 1870 something, okay? The Balfour Declaration was in 1917, right?
1917. Yes.
1917. Yeah. The mass immigration into that land happened after the First World War.
After 1920.
So this is way, way before the Holocaust happened.
Yes.
So what's your views on the fact that how instrumental has the West and the British in particular, obviously the Americans, they took over from what was already set up. How instrumental? Because the reason why I mentioned this as well, I want you guys to views, is because I feel angry or frustrated when you see people trying to petition or protest to the British government to help the issue of the Palestinians or try to settle any issue, where they're so disconnected from the fact that this whole project, this Zionist project, it's been set up and started from the West, Britain in particular, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong there. But what's your views on this then, the Western role of setting up this freak entity in the heart of the Muslim?
It's very important, very, very important to notice that the immigration to Palestine started nearly more than 20 years before the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very important because, as you said, we need to know when we argue that it was not the Holocaust which caused the immigration of the poor, persecuted Jews from Europe. They had nowhere to go to, and then they ran to Palestine because it was there for them.
And it was empty.
And it was empty at the same time. No, the immigration started properly after 1920 when the British took control of Palestine. But the seed of it is in 1898.
Okay.
The Zionism, the first conference of Zionist movement took place. It was in 1898. And they had three options. The Jews.
Yeah, of where to
settle. Uganda, Argentina,
yeah, I heard Argentina.
and Palestine.
Yeah.
And for a while, Palestine and Argentina was out of the question, and the direction was towards Uganda.
Yeah.
But then they voted again, and so where is the promised land? From the first conference, if you have got three options, and you claim that you are going to Palestine for your religious reasons, why would you put another two options? There should be only one option.
But how genuine is this? And the reason why I say that is that this whole Zionist project is directly linked to the land of Palestine, in the sense, like, because even when you have like Christian Zionists, their view is the fact that the Messiah, i.e. from their point of view, Isa alayhi salam, is going to return when Solomon's temple is going to be rebuilt, for example. So from what I've understood is that from Zionism, there's always that connection to Palestine. So it's a bit strange to hear the fact that they were entertaining the options of Argentina and also of Uganda.
Their priority was not religious. Remember, Herzl himself,
He was secular.
was secular. Ben Gurion was an atheist. They didn't believe in God. They believed in the race of the Israelis.
But wouldn't you say then, Brother Sami, because you mentioned 1898, right? Now, what I mentioned to you before was a quote from 1875 from the Earl of Shaftesbury, okay? And also there's a quote from the Archbishop of York, and this was actually at the at a meeting for the let me find the name. Anyway, leave that for a second. What he said is that the country of Palestine belongs to you and me. It is essentially ours. It was given to the father of Israel in the words, "Walk through the land, the length of it, and in the breadth of it, for I give it unto thee." So I mean, there's more to the quote.
Which year was that?
That this is in 1875.
I'll take you even earlier than that.
Napoleon. So the point I'm making though is the fact that, just say the Zionists, like you said, the secular Zionists, they wanted a land for, just say the Jews, and they were entertaining these other things. But this actually even shows more of the hand of the West for having a freak entity in the land of the Muslims, because this is even before that first convention of the Zionists.
This what you are mentioning is actually coincide with the claim, not the claim, the call of Napoleon, the French, when he came to Acre and he could not enter Palestine. In there he called for the Jews. So there is a link between some Christian beliefs and some Jewish beliefs. Remember, the Christians, they believe in the New and the Old Testament.
That's right.
Okay. Zionism, the meeting, the conference I have mentioned, is actually, it was the first conference for an ideology which was there years before, hundreds of years before. Since Umar ibn al-Khattab kicked them out of Jerusalem, they wanted to come back. They wanted to come back. The confusion could be is, why would they choose Uganda and Argentina if their connection is with Palestine itself?
Yeah.
This is very confusing. This is very confusing. Maybe because at that time the Ottoman Empire was very strong and they wanted to collect themselves, so they thought we need to settle
strength.
somewhere.
Maybe
now.
Produce some strength by
to
uniting.
Somewhere now. So the claim of the land of Palestine by the Jews goes back to the time of Umar ibn Khattab, so we don't get confused. Many Christians sympathize with this, and they maybe believe that this is a way for Jesus to come back, or for Messiah to come back. The evangelist. Yeah, all these issues. So it doesn't contradict any of the points that we have mentioned here.
Yeah, exactly. So moving on to now, because if you look at the current situation, and the reason why I'm going to mention this is because you mentioned about the Uthmani Khilafah, right? That they were around and they were strong at that time, even though towards that time they weren't very strong, but still they were stronger than the Zionists. We see that they even approached Sultan Abdul Hamid II and offered to pay their debts and for the land of Palestine. Okay, and we see that and this is the reason why I'm bringing this as well, is because not just because it's going to lead on to the question of now and the situation of the rulers today, but also the fact that it shows that this has always been an Islamic issue from a Muslim point of view. Because what did he say? He said, "This is not mine to give you." Even though if anyone was to have the position to give it, would be the leader of the Muslims. Okay, he said, "This is not mine to give you. The Muslims have irrigated their blood for this. There may come a time when there's no Khilafah left, then you could take it for free, but we won't give it." Okay, so this was their response. So we can see from an Islamic point of view that the whole issue of Palestine is an Islamic point of view from the way we see it, right? But in regards to today and the normalization that's going on, and the way the leaders have been behaving, and their current leaders, it's huge difference to the leaders, for example, like Sultan Abdulhamid his response. Okay, now originally we see that the Arabs saw this as an Arab issue, and there were some fake wars, which we can go into another podcast. We don't have the time today. But why do you think there is a difference between the response of Abdulhamid II, as an example, and the people today, like the rulers of UAE, for example, these people that are normalizing, like Morocco and these places? Why do you think there's a difference in approach?
There is no difference, Akhi, because you've mentioned the Khalifa, then you mentioned the people. I don't think that's accurate. It's the Khalifa and the rulers who are puppets.
No, I'm all about the rulers. I'm all about the people.
Okay, it's not the people.
No, not the people. Rulers.
It's very simple. There was a Khilafah at that time, a united Muslim Ummah. Now we've got how many? The Muslim nation in the United Nations, I think we are 53 states.
50, yeah.
50 odd. 22 Arabs. That's why. If we are one, we would say the same what Abdul Hamid said.
Yeah.
So, but with these puppets, if you look at if you study the history of the war of 1948 and 1967, it's an absolute conspiracy.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. I'll give you a little example of this conspiracy, which will enable people to understand how could a land like Palestine be occupied by the Israelis in 1948.
Yeah, exactly.
We had 6 armies attacking Israel, and they were weak. In 1967, the desert of Sinai is triple the size of Palestine, the whole of Palestine. How could an army retreat within 6 days and disappear in the Egyptian border in this huge, vast piece of land? An army to retreat in 6 days from the whole of the Sinai. If you drive, you and your wife, it will take you 2 days.
Okay.
If you drive with your wife across the desert from Gaza to the Suez Canal, it might take you 2 days driving. How could a whole army retreat in 6 days? That's not a war.
Yeah.
It took them tens of days trying to enter 1 meter of Gaza against Hamas, who are militia, not even an arm, and they couldn't. There was no war with them. When in 1948 we won the war, and when we were advancing against the Jews.
You know, you say we. You mean the surrounding militaries, yeah?
The Arabs, the Muslims, the fighters who fought. When we won and they were defeating, we did truce for 10 days.
In 48, right?
In 48. Truce for what?
Okay, that's strange.
We are winning.
Yeah.
They stopped, the Iraqis stopped, the Egyptians stopped, the Jordanians. It was a plan.
It was
a
conspiracy.
They gave them enough time for the British to rearm them.
I think also, Brother Sami, it's psychological. You know, psychological, that in 6 days.
Yeah.
That's in 1967.
In 67, yeah. In 6 days, they destroyed...
And then when you get the youth,
Arab armies.
Yeah, when you see the youth now, that this is what they try to tell the youth, is that if they were able to do this then, and now they have America on their side, then this is why there cannot be a military solution to Palestine. They have put that fear amongst the Muslims.
This is why, alhamdulillah, the last war in Gaza and the wars before them has shown that although we could be weak, but we can still be strong.
Yeah. And if we are united, then how strong would we be?
Look, imagine if we are united, how strong we will be. So the last war in Palestine has done so many advantages, so many positive points. The first point, one of the main points, it has united the 4 sections of Palestinians I mentioned at the beginning.
They all came together.
Everybody fought. The people from the 1948, the Gaza, Jerusalem, the West, everybody got together as Palestinians against Israel. The most important thing as well, it has took the Palestinian issue from the Palestinian Arabic container into the Muslim Islamic container.
Yeah.
Because it's Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is in question now. And when it comes to Al-Aqsa, everybody claims responsibility and ownership of it. You would never, if I say to you, oh, you are from Pakistan or whatever, what have you got to do with Al-Aqsa? You show me the Quran. You said, this is my deed.
This is Aqidah issue.
This is my deed. This is my land registry. Whether you like it, you are Palestinians, fine. But this is my land registry, my friend. You can't claim it's yours. It's not ours. It happened that we are living there. We are maybe honored.
Well, to
be honest, to be living there. Because we are the head of the spear. But But at the same time, we are gifted because when we have martyrs, when we fight, when we support financially, we get more rewards than others. But yeah, nobody can. And no Muslim, this is very important, no Muslim should ever let his deed down of his ownership to Jerusalem, whether he's from Indonesia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Turkey, Iran, Saudi Arabia. It doesn't belong to the Arabs. It doesn't belong to the Palestinians.
Yes, well,
it belongs to the Muslim nation.
And this is a really important one, that I think this is what the brother's saying about, this most recent aggression during Ramadan. It has woken up many Muslims, because what happens is, before that, some Muslims may have even said that if the people in Gaza are under such oppression, then some people even said, why don't they leave? And some people say, if they're struggling so much, they should leave because, the Israeli aggression is going to continue. But it's this mindset, and then Muslims around the world saying, now we need to teach our children the importance of Al-Aqsa and the reasons why it's so dear to us. And this kind of, just from an education point of view, has increased. There are institutions and mosques and places who have said, wait there. At this point, there were some people who were confused. It's important now for us to teach our youth that this is the importance of Al-Aqsa and this is the importance of Palestine. Prior to that, I think there was an assumption that maybe people would realize that, if there's bombing on Gaza, we all come together. This time there is more of an intellectual, this is why we need to oppose this, which is, alhamdulillah, is a positive sign.
Nice. It's definitely positive, and it's why it's important, what the message you guys are just giving there, and it's so important to even sort of like bring close on this message, is the fact that the way it's being shown is that, Palestine, it may have been an Islamic issue, then it became an Arab issue, a PLO Fatah issue, and Hamas issue, and now it's even a humanitarian issue. And I think that's very important as Muslims. The deed that brother, I could not put it better myself. That deed that we have is something which we all need to understand.
Yes.
And it's something which gives us that link, makes that, no matter from where we're from, makes that link between us and that land. But time has unfortunately come to a close. So just to get some final thoughts, and brother Sami, on this issue, and inshallah ta'ala we'll definitely get you on again, because next time we'll try to have a bit more time, because there were so many questions I wanted to ask you, even on the stuff that you were saying, because I'm a historian, I like history.
Okay.
So maybe another time we grab a coffee in Normandy or something, and discuss a lot of things, because there's a lot of information that you mentioned. But maybe some for our listeners, some final sort of thoughts that you have on this issue and important points that we should take away.
For me, there is a very important point as a final point. It's the hope which is based on facts. The hope and the belief that we are going to get Al-Aqsa back. This is non-negotiable. When you look at the Palestinian issue and the international community and the conspiracies against the Muslims and the Palestinians, don't get frustrated. Don't get frustrated at all, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said in the Quran about the second return of the Jews, He said, Ji'na bikum lafifa, means we are going to collect you, to the Jews, to collect you and put you in this area. The word lafifa in Arabic is when you roll something from the four corners and you roll it together to become in the middle. And this is how the Jews came to Palestine. They were taken from every single corner of the world.
That's true.
And were based. If Israel doesn't exist, the Quran is wrong.
Okay.
We've been told He's going to bring them. Here He is. He brought them.
Okay.
We were told we will defeat them. We have to believe that we are going to defeat them. This is Allah's law. This is Allah's will. We are just going through the stages that Allah has written to us. They are going, no doubt about it. So there is no need to get frustrated or depressed about it. We are getting there by Allah's orders, by Allah's testifying, by Allah's telling us in the Quran that they are going to reach power twice. They did the first time. And then they were defeated when the Iraqis came and took them. The first time we mentioned it.
Yeah.
And this is the second time. And when He mentioned the first time, how the defeat of the Israelis will be, it was different than the second time. The first time He said, in Arabic, what it might be translated to the word jasu, they went through the houses. The first time, the Iraqis went. The second time, he said, وَلِيُتَبِّرُوا مَا عَلَوْا تَتْبِيرًا, to destroy what they have risen in building completely. So it's going to be rockets, it's going to be military, it's going to be a proper war. So don't get frustrated. This is actually proof that the Quran is right. We are going to take the Palestinian issue as a proof to the humans in the future to say to them, here we are, he said it twice happened.
And we also know Al-Quds will be the capital of a future Islamic civilization.
Jerusalem will and always will be the political capital of the Muslims. Mecca is going to be the religious capital for Muslims, whole Muslims. So don't get frustrated. Everybody keep working. Even this little beautiful podcast I've been in today, don't underestimate anything you do. And just do it for the sake of Allah, you get the word for it.
And I'm taking your final thoughts here, but I wanted to add to that. And the last thing you said is that, and to qualify that, just because it may well be, I mean, I'll have to look into those verses that you mentioned, but just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying this is going to happen, Allah grants victory for the people when they perform the necessary steps for that victory to come.
Yes.
So it doesn't just mean, okay, that means that it's prophesied, so I'm not going to do anything about it, I'm not going to speak about it, I'm not going to be concerned about it. We have to do the things that we have to do in order to work towards that change.
Don't you think that such a podcast is not actually a step towards it?
Of course.
That's it. So we are working.
Yeah, of course.
Whether you realize it or not, you are doing something.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah.
With Rash?
Yeah. No, I think the way to look at it is that because this is an emotional issue, because again, and especially because it happened during Ramadan as well, this most recent time, I think emotion naturally in a human being, it goes up and down. Yeah. So sometimes the concern is that when the emotion goes down, then maybe the actions are not there. Yeah. Yes. But like the brother is saying here, I think it's really important that, yes, we know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us. We know the prophecy, but I think your point is the key one, is that if we sit back and don't do anything about that, then what we're doing is just saying, it's like Musa alayhi salam, the example the brother gave as well earlier about saying, you and your God go and fight. But we know as Muslims, as human beings put on this earth, that we have a duty as well. For something to happen, even for Badr to happen, even for any of the victories that the Muslims had to happen, it happened via people. The people needed to do something, and the people were at a level. They have to have a level of understanding of Islam. They have to have a level of Iman, and then the victory came.
Correct.
To just sit back and say, okay, Allah will sort it out for us because it was prophesied that all of these Jews would be there, and then it's prophesied that they will be removed, then that would mean that we are not doing our Islamic duty.
Yeah. No, Jazakallah. And I thoroughly enjoyed this podcast. I've not really got anything to add other than a message for the people watching and the people listening that, in Ramadan, we saw emotions were high. We saw people speaking out. Ramadan may have gone, but the situation in Palestine is still the same. So we need to make sure that, we're aware of what's happening. We're one body, as the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. And when one part hurts, the other part is, he's in fever, he can't sleep. And that's how we should feel on this matter. A big jazakallah khair, Brother Sami.
It was a pleasure, brother. Honestly, I really enjoyed it for you being here today. Thank you very much for
we will continue this discussion because there is so much we didn't get an opportunity to speak about. We were going to speak about some important things like, they're talking about internationalization, and they're talking about, some of the other normalization issues where why didn't they come and say, okay, let's tear up these normalizations after what has happened this time. But there's so much to speak about. Inshallah, we will do it again soon.
I didn't even reference here. I mean, like I said, is just listening from the historical point of view. But to be honest with you, I think that we've served a purpose even with this podcast, because even if we never spoke much about what's happening right now, I think the big issue really is historically. If people don't understand our history, then now they can get confused, like, okay, let's internationalize Jerusalem so the Christians can have it, the Jews can have it, the Muslims can have it, so no one can take over. You can fall into this.
You need the history deception to be able to expose those things. Yeah.
Without history, you can't understand the present and you can't understand the future. Exactly. Yeah. So again, Jazakallah khair, brothers, for joining me, and Jazakallah khair for everyone watching and listening at home. Please follow us on all our media platforms, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And please, if you found this podcast beneficial, please share it with family and friends. And from myself and from my beautiful panel, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Thanks for watching that video. For more exclusive videos, please like, share and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget you can listen to some of our shows wherever you are, because we're also available on all popular podcast platforms. And for more Voice of the Ummah content, make sure you check out the links to all of our social media platforms in the description below.